Brought to you by Penguin.
The Big Hop by David Rooney. Read by Jeremy Clyde. Prologue. Harry Hawker and Mac Grieve had been flying east over the Atlantic Ocean for 10 hours when the end came. The flight had started in rocky, snow-covered Newfoundland well enough. The men had planned the long flight carefully. After a slightly shaky take-off, when they nearly crashed into a ditch, they made good progress. But soon, things started to go wrong. They hit fiercer storms than the meteorologists had predicted. Nobody really knew what the weather was like a mile or two above the mid-Atlantic, because nobody had been there before. As Hawker called on the aeroplane's engine for more power so he could skirt around the worst of the storm, he found that it had developed a fault. It wasn't a fuel shortage, nor a mechanical malfunction. There was a problem with the cooling system. The water in the radiator wasn't getting around the engine, so it was overheating. The men tried to cure the problem in a series of risky manoeuvres, but it was no good. The coolant was boiling off fast, and when it ran out, the engine would soon seize. They came down low over the roiling Atlantic waters to look for somewhere to ditch, and for a ship that might pick them up. 2 hours of searching, as the radiator's pressure relief pipe spewed steam in front of them, proved fruitless. The 30-year-old Hawker had years of experience and was considered one of the best pilots in the world, but he was highly strung. When things were going wrong, he could be moody and impatient. He struggled with the controls as the storm tossed the aeroplane around the sky. It was like cresting a roller coaster repeatedly, and the pit of his stomach heaved each time. Before long, he was vomiting over the open side of the cockpit. Grieve, the navigator, was a Navy man, 9 years older than his partner and more stolid. He had been trying to work out their position with his sextant, drift indicator, and compass, but the rain squalls and dense clouds had cut him off from the sun and stars, even if he could have held the sextant still enough as the aircraft lurched. In the end, he joined Hawker in scouring the sea for salvation. They flew back and forth in a zigzag, but the scene, what little of it they could glimpse as they stared into the storm, never changed. The sky was theirs and theirs alone. The ocean, a turbulent grey waste 400 feet beneath their cockpit, was hiding the steamships that ploughed its frigid waters. The wireless set that might have alerted a ship to their distress hadn't worked all through the flight. The men had flares on board, bright red lights that could be fired high into the sky from a pistol, but they would be useless in a fog like this. The cloud was too thick, and flares would sputter out in moments anyway. The two aviators had flown 1,000 miles from Newfoundland in their 2-seater aircraft with its open-topped cockpit. They'd have to fly another 1,000 to reach where they planned to go, Ireland. The wind and spray whipped their faces raw. The harsh growl of the engine assaulted their ears, and the heady fumes of gasoline exhaust flowed around their cramped enclosure. They knew that millions of people around the world were willing them along on their flight, but the men had never felt more alone. They were now resigned to the fact that they would not make it across the ocean. There they were, at 8 o'clock that morning, a speck of humanity waiting to die in an angry Atlantic storm. Finally, the last drops of precious coolant in their engine boiled away. It was May 1919. Hawker and Grieve were among 7 aviators that summer who would take off from Newfoundland, intending to land on the shores of the British Isles without stopping along the way. The contest for the first non-stop transatlantic flight was sponsored by Britain's Daily Mail newspaper. It was known to some, especially in the United States, as the Big Hop. Only 2 of the 7 airmen would make it across successfully. The others would fail in their endeavours. Yet they all achieved something which, at the time, was akin to greatness.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?